Paul and Jessica had been married for 6 years, but over the past 2, Paul had thrown himself into his career, chasing bigger opportunities with a dream of one day building their own home. For now, they lived in a modest city apartment, both working steady jobs. However, with Paul becoming increasingly busy, the balance in their marriage had shifted. The spark they once shared had all but faded, and at times, Paul felt like they were nothing more than roommates. Whenever Jessica made an effort to reignite the passion between them, Paul was too preoccupied with work to notice. By the time he realized something was wrong, she no longer seemed interested in meeting him halfway. Then, one day, he received news at the office. He would soon be traveling frequently for work, with his first business trip just weeks away. Oddly enough, Paul felt a glimmer of hope. Part of it came from knowing management trusted him more, but another part stemmed from a memory of his last business trip a year earlier. After just a week apart, Jessica had missed him so much that their reunion had been electric. Even if it had been short-lived, it had rekindled something between them. He hoped another trip might have the same effect. A few weeks later, Paul packed his bags, said his goodbyes to Jessica, and left for his trip. She appeared downcast, which reassured him. Maybe they were still okay. But in reality, Jessica's sadness had little to do with their marriage. She was simply exhausted from the monotony of it all and was already contemplating ways to enjoy her time alone in the coming week. As if on cue, her phone rang. It was an old friend who had recently divorced and was now living her best life. "Jess, hey, I'm throwing a little party. Remember the bar owner I told you about? He's letting me use the place for a night. You have to come. It's going to be crazy fun. And the guys I've invited." "Oh, you have no idea." Jessica smirked at her reflection in the mirror, already imagining an escape from her dull routine. There was no need to mention the party to Paul. Sure enough, when Paul returned home a week later, Jessica seemed livelier, more talkative, but it wasn't quite the homecoming he had envisioned. Whenever he hinted at intimacy, she brushed him off, claiming she was too tired or simply not in the mood. Yet her glowing energy told a different story. She had changed her hairstyle, started wearing heels again, and carried herself with a newfound confidence. She radiated from the inside out. For a fleeting moment, Paul even wondered if she might be pregnant. But as time would soon reveal, the truth was something else entirely. A month later, Paul received word that he'd be heading out on another short business trip. That morning, he packed his suitcase and took it with him to work, planning to catch an evening train that would get him to his assignment by the next morning. But at the last minute, his trip was postponed by a full month. He found it almost amusing. He wasn't exactly eager to leave again so soon anyway. Still carrying his suitcase, he arrived home unexpectedly and stepped inside, only to find Jessica in the hallway slipping on her coat. They nearly collided. She looked stunning, her hair styled perfectly, bold makeup accentuating her features, and a sleek, elegant dress hugging her figure. Usually, she only dressed like this for a major event. Paul furrowed his brow. Did you forget something?" She glanced at the time on her phone, clearly caught off guard by his unexpected arrival. "My trip got postponed," Paul explained. Then, eyeing her up and down, he asked, "What about you? Where are you headed all dressed up?" Jessica instinctively pulled her coat tighter, as if hoping he wouldn't notice the daring outfit underneath. "Oh, just meeting the girls. It's, Naomi's birthday," she blurted out. Before Paul could respond, a couple of quick honks sounded from outside, like someone was in a hurry to pick someone up. Jessica scrambled to unlock her phone and typed something hastily. A warning bell went off in Paul's head. He rushed to the window, but the car had already disappeared. Turning back to Jessica, he grabbed her phone and started scanning her latest messages. But there was nothing. No sent texts, nothing at all. Their conversation quickly escalated into an argument, and by the end of it, Jessica didn't go anywhere that night. But Paul's suspicions only grew stronger. Something was definitely going on. But without concrete proof, he couldn't be sure. That car in the lot could have belonged to anyone. Still, her behavior didn't sit right with him. He needed a plan. The next time he had to leave for a business trip, he would make it seem like he was really gone, giving her the illusion of complete freedom. A few days later, over dinner, Paul acted completely normal and casually mentioned that he'd be traveling for work the following week. Jessica tried to keep her expression neutral, but he caught the faintest hint of a smirk. She seemed pleased. Early the next week, Paul packed his bags, said his goodbyes, and left the house as if heading to the train station. But instead of leaving town, he checked into a nearby hotel. That evening, as soon as Jessica's workday ended, Paul was waiting outside her office building. The moment she stepped out, she pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and scanned her surroundings like she was looking for someone. When she spotted a car, her face lit up, and she waved excitedly before ending the call. No one reacts like that over an ordinary taxi. She climbed into the car, and Paul followed discreetly. But to his surprise, the vehicle didn't take her somewhere private. It pulled up right outside their apartment building. A man stepped out and walked around to open her door, and Jessica responded with a flirtatious giggle, throwing her arms around him in a playful hug. Rage burned in Paul's chest. How reckless could she be, bringing a lover home on the very night she believed her husband was out of town? He decided to wait, determined to catch them in the act. Watching from the shadows, he saw the lights in the apartment flicker on. Minutes later, the bedroom light switched off. That was his cue. With steady steps, Paul approached the apartment. From outside, he could hear faint music playing. Perfect. They wouldn't hear him come in. Quietly, he unlocked the door and slipped inside. He moved through the hallway and grabbed a baseball bat from the closet, the one he had kept for emergencies but never actually used. Then, without hesitation, he stormed into the bedroom. Jessica was straddling the man when Paul flipped on the lights and let out a furious roar. Without aiming for anyone, he swung the bat hard, smashing the portable speaker that had been playing the music. Jessica let out a scream and tumbled off the bed. The man froze, his face twisted in sheer panic. "Get out. Now." Paul's voice was a deadly growl. The guy didn't need to be told twice. Scrambling to his feet, he bolted from the room, fumbling for his shoes in the entryway as Paul shoved him toward the door. Then, turning to Jessica, Paul's tone remained ice-cold. "That goes for you too. Pack your things and get out. You have 10 minutes. Without waiting for a response, he walked off, fists clenched, trying to calm himself before he did something he'd regret. Jessica, shaking, grabbed whatever clothes she could and stuffed them into a bag. In under 10 minutes, she was gone. A couple of days later, once Paul had cooled down, he filed for divorce. There was no coming back from this. He couldn't imagine a future with her after what she had done. As for Jessica, that very night, she tried calling her lover multiple times, hoping to twist the story, painting Paul as a crazed ex who had lost his mind. But the guy never answered. In fact, he eventually blocked her number. Clearly, he had no interest in getting tangled up in more drama. With nowhere else to go, Jessica ended up moving in with the same friend who had invited her to that party, the one where she had first met her fling. Now, two newly divorced women found themselves roommates. Maybe in some twisted way it worked out for them. More time to party, no one to lie to, but deep down they were probably just fooling themselves, chasing fleeting nights that rarely led to anything real.